Arnold is first in the name of this firm. As Thurman became a mature man, reached the age of 12, his father said to him, Thurman, now it's time for you to learn to read and write. This is after he had served a term in the Wyoming legislature. And he said, I think you better go east where I understand they teach people to read and write. And so Thurman said, Father, your word is my command. That shows the humility that has always characterized this man. And so his father said, all right, son, you're going to a place called Princeton. And Thurman said, Father, your wish is my command. Thurman, am I accurate thus far?
Absolutely.
So Thurman got on old Dobbin, and he set out for Princeton. And even in those days, it was a hard journey, you know. And Thurman ran out of money, and he came to he ran out of money and couldn't pay the toll at the various turnpikes, and so he'd have to stop and work milking cows and various other things that were around to be milked, and but all of you who know and admire him will realize that he reached his destination, and after a while he arrived at Princeton. And at Princeton, they had a course there in reading and writing. But Thurman didn't think much of that, so he enrolled in a course, and I hope all of you have heard him tell about this. It was a course in how to mature cigars and make women feel younger. Is that right, Thurman?
That's right.
Well, Thurman enrolled in that course, and he took that course in, let's see, he took how to mature cigars and make women feel younger, 1, how to mature cigars and make women feel younger, 2, and so on. You know, and he went all through that. And when he got through at Princeton, he was elected to Phi Beta Kappa. But I want to tell you what sort of a man your senior partner is. He declined the honor. He said, I will not be elected to Phi Beta Kappa unless I can be president of Phi Beta Kappa. Well, unhappily, on that particular year, the presidency was filled, and so Thurman is not Phi Beta Kappa. Thurman, you're not Phi Beta Kappa.
No.
So he's not Phi Beta Kappa today, and I would now like to move that everybody here who doesn't belong to Phi Beta Kappa and who's in favor of Thurman's election to it, nunc pro tunc, that's a legal term that we use on the Supreme Court, say aye.
Aye. No.
Thurman, I want to congratulate you. Then after he got through with Princeton, there was still only one way that he could make a living. And old Dobbin was getting kind of old for that. So Thurman sent some smoke messages by signal smoke, you know, to his father, who was out in Laramie, Wyoming. And Thurman said, Pappy, what'll I do now to make a living? And his pappy said, sent back a message and said, well, son, have you learned to read and write? And Thurman sent back a message, and he said, not very good. And so his pappy sent back a message and said, well, if that's so, go to the Harvard Law School. And so that was the next step. And that was the reason why Thurman didn't go to Yale. See, because he hadn't learned how to read and write very good. So he went to Harvard Law School. And when he was at Harvard Law School, he was invited to become a member of the Harvard Law Review. But he had heard of a fellow named Bill McGovern, you see, who was at Yale, and Bill McGovern had refused an invitation to compete for the Yale Law Journal. So Thurman said that if this fellow McGovern can be a great lawyer and one of the leading intellects of our time, and also the person who is called on to occupy famous pulpits every Sunday, Thurman said if Bill McGovern has achieved that without accepting an invitation to be a member of the Yale Law Journal, I will not join the Harvard Law Review. And that's the reason that Thurman was never on the board of the Harvard Law Review. Thurman, have you ever made it since that time?
Not that I know of.
Right. All right. Well, that's what happened. And then after a while, Thurman and old Dobbin went off to the war. Which war was that, Thurman?
Spanish-American.
The Spanish-American War. You see, old Dobbin knew how to speak Spanish. And Thurman became a captain in the Spanish-American War, and old Dobbin made Major General. Yeah, he's now referred to as old chocolate bar with nuts. And he's got it. You don't know whom I mean, do you? Well, anyway, he's still active, but not in the direct line of fire. And at least part of him is. And anyway, Thurman, Jesus. And so Thurman and Dobbin came back from the wars, and they were absolutely intact and unscarred. And they came back to Laramie, Wyoming, and Thurman came to see his pappy, and he said, "Pappy, I'm back." And his father said, "Well, Thurman, I see you are." And he said, despite the fact that you look fine, how are you? And Thurman said, "Well, Pappy, I think I ought to practice law, and will you please move over?" And so his father, you see, was a very distinguished lawyer out then. So the two Arnolds began the practice of law in Laramie, Wyoming. And that was the beginning of great things for Laramie, because every widow there was represented without fee. That is, every widow, you know, up to a certain point. And does everybody here know this sad story that former Senator O'Mahony used to tell us about those days? You see, Thurman and his father always tried cases together. That both of them would represent a client. Then the client would think that she was getting a bargain because she had two lawyers instead of one. Well, I don't want to disclose any professional secrets because I shouldn't do that now that I'm no longer in practice, but it doesn't always work that way. And Joe Manley tells a story about the time that he was trying a case against the two Arnolds, and he was representing a lady against this widow that the two Arnolds were representing, and the lady and Joe Manley was up making and that Arnold's had argued before, and then Joe Manley arose to his feet, and he was making an argument, and his client pulled his coattail and said, Mr. O'Mahony, he said, "Shut up, don't you see I'm making an argument here?" The lady said, Mr. O'Mahony. He said, "Well, now, what is it?" And she said, Mr. O'Mahony, don't you think we'd better get another lawyer? He said, "Why do you need another lawyer? I'm representing you." She said, "I think we need another lawyer because I noticed when one of those Arnolds is talking, the other's thinking. And when you're talking, nobody's thinking." Well, anyway, time went on, and then Thurman Arnold went on from there, and he became the dean of various law schools, and he was on the faculty of various distinguished law schools, and then he wrote a book called The Capitalism of Folklore, and he was on. He used to do some vaudeville turns once in a while and practice the law and do some dog training. His dog training was great, just magnificent. And it's the real answer to his success. And then came the climax of his career that I very well remember. When Thurman Arnold served as a trial examiner at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, that was the height of it, and ever since then it was downhill. Because it was after that that he became a judge. And I know very well that that's at the bottom of the heap. Well, anyway, there came a point of time when Thurman was, I guess he was about to be impeached. There must have been that. It must have been that he was about to be impeached. I can't think of any other reason why he would leave the bench and embark upon a highly unsuccessful career as a practicing lawyer. And you know that his career is unsuccessful. You look around here. No man can who would have a successful career would possibly become associated with this many mouths to feed. And then you take a look at all these people and you think of the children that are back home. I mean, say you have to take every one of these people here, every one of them, and multiply them by 5 to get a realistic count of the number of mouths that there are to feed. But anyway, he's a young man, and I love him very, very much, and I'm sure you all love him. There's no man that I've ever known that I admire as much as I do Thurman, from whom I have learned as much as I have from him. I've learned so much about what life is, and what the obligations of a man are, and what it is to be a man, and what it is to cope with fear, and what it is to fulfill a man's destiny, as I have from Thurman Arnold, whom I love so much and whom I value so much. And my great regret is that I don't have occasion now, as I used to have, of running into his office every morning and putting out the fire in the wastebasket.
But be Mr. Justice Fortas and ladies and gentlemen comprising that great eleemosynary institution known today as Arnold and Porter. I am grateful for the historical research that Abe Fortas has dedicated to my career. Everything he said is about 20% accurate. The only quarrel I have with him is his understatement of my qualifications at the end of his speech. Mr. Justice, as an alumnus of this firm, we are grateful to welcome you back to this party. We have a feeling of awe and reverence that you're standing on the highest pinnacle known to the law, your black robe flopping in the wind. No other court in the history of civilized jurisprudence since the days of Hammurabi has done so much for helpless minorities. You have made the lives of downtrodden and destitute criminals happier. I'm not unaware of the fact that many earnest and holy men have advised me that the court is solely responsible for the present increase in crime. I say that is very true. But it is a small price to pay for the encouragement of these men who roam the streets, snatching pocketbooks and earning a very inferior living. And the second great achievement of your court, and I am sincere about this, is the relief of schools from the responsibility of writing prayers. Here I applaud, but I want to call the court's attention respectfully and deferentially to the danger of these decisions in a problem which I don't think the court quite realizes, and that is the devaluation of the dollar. I do not think it is the grain of gold that is causing the fears of devaluation. I think that Europeans who are selling the dollar short are afraid that these religious decisions will ultimately result in the removal from the dollar of the phrase, "In God we trust." Now, if those decisions are escalated, I do not criticize the court, but if those decisions are escalated, God may get sore. And if he does, and he goes on the side of the communists, and a couple of the more decisions like that may cause him to do so, the dollar will go to hell. And so I respectfully remind the justice and ask him to convey my message to his colleagues, that he must not cross the Yellow River with respect to disrespect to God. I do not say he's gone too far now, but the same dangers that face us in the escalation of the Vietnamese War face us in the war of the United States Supreme Court against religion. And finally, I commend the court for having the greatest and most solid reputation of any court in the civilized world since the days of Hammurabi for complete unpredictability. The result, the happiest and the most prosperous bar in the world. There's only one fly in this judicial ointment, and that is the worries and the fevers and the frets that now plague the firm of Arnold Porter since Abe has gone. Abe was a goose that laid the golden egg. He was the captain and the quarterback and the scrambling quarterback of this firm, throwing passes in all directions, and every one of them found a receiver. Now, as I look forth on this sea of upturned faces, I am compelled to observe that there are more than about 25 people whom we've had to retain in order to do the work that Abe did all by himself. I do not criticize the distinguished lawyers who took the risk of joining this firm. They are men of the greatest courage and dedication. I consider them comparable to the soldiers in Vietnam. They are trying to preserve American democracy. You gentlemen who come with us are fighting to preserve and fighting for the survival of Arnold and Porter. But on the other hand, the problems of caring for and feeding the rapidly growing families of these men who have joined us at this great risk is bleeding us white. Their ideas of what is required to live on a scale which they consider necessary are extravagant. And so the firm of Arnold and Porter is today loaded below the Plimsoll line. We cannot carry on our projects any more than the United States could carry on its projects because of this enormous expense of the people who replaced Abe Fortas. Arnold and Porter, I should say, is at present in a situation of a sinking ship in shallow water and sinking mighty fast. I have a hope here, and it's a thing that sustains me in these dark days. I think that the American public is beginning to realize that our contribution to the public weal and the judicial establishment in giving Abe Fortas to the Supreme Court is greater than the contribution of any other organization in the United States except perhaps the NAACP. And it is my belief, and I am informed, that there is going to be a nationwide drive to raise funds for Arnold and Porter to replace Abe Fortas. Next spring, you will see the slogan all over the United States: "Give till it hurts. Arnold and Porter need shirts." And I am informed that the next Congress, in recognition of our gift of Abe Fortas to the public sector, is prepared to give us a perpetual subsidy. So I think we will survive. And you gentlemen who have taken the risk and have joined this firm will probably be remunerated far more than you are entitled to be removed. Next, for a more cheerful note, Paul Porter always leaves for Christmas. But he never fails to give us a message to be read at the dinner. The wit and wisdom of these messages, if you people have attended several dinners, is notorious. This time, Paul Porter spent, before leaving, the entire morning in writing out his message, which I am about to read. But I think that I should inform you that this is the wittiest, the most succinct, and the best message that he has yet given this firm in his absence. I will read it now. Where is it? I'm very much embarrassed. I could remember it, but I might not reflect his exact phraseology, which is perfect. Fourth page.
Marguerite, I gave it to you.
I gave it to you.
No.
Wait a minute.
Marguerite, I gave it to you.
Did you give it
Well,
to
I'm
me
embarrassed.
first?
I should have. Well, of course, this is what comes from an inefficient secretary. I haven't done it.
Marguerite, I gave it to you.
Yes.
No.
Thurman, I think this is it. Thurman, you just dropped it. I think that's it.
Oh, inspected bud. Oh, here it is.
It says,
Oh,
if
yes.
any defect should be discovered, return this ticket.
Is that it?
Yes, this is it. Here it is. And you can see what, you see what I'm up against in Marguerite.
I've never been hired, you know.
Memo. Well, to Judge Arnold from Paul Porter. This is to remind you that you agreed to deliver a message on my behalf to the dearly beloved who are assembled in the Christmas party. My message is as follows. Merry Christmas. You know, for originality, you can't beat that. My prediction is that phrase, which was coined just before Paul Porter left, will be on every Christmas card sent in the United States next year. When Abe Fortas joined the firm, he was horrified. He said, this firm has been grinding down the hired help, making them buy their own typewriters. I will not put up with it. You must remember that the sole purpose of this firm is to feed and clothe and make happy the stenographers and the associates. The profits of the members of this firm are nothing. Our purpose is to make our associates happy. And that has been the policy of this firm ever since Abe Fortas took over control and captured this sinking ship and got it afloat again. And the policy's paid back. It has paid off in great degree, and I was very much moved at what happened this year. This year we gave the most extravagant and undeserved bonuses to the associates in the history of civilized law. And as they came in, I told them that Vic Kramer had agreed to stabilize the situation. I said, if you don't think you've got enough, you can go to Vic Kramer, and he will write his personal check and give you what you think you ought to have. I said, on the other hand, if you think you've got too much, you will go to Vic Kramer and turn your check in to him. I thought Vic was undergoing a risk there, but he wasn't. The last reports I have are that of the income and outgo, he has made $15,000, which is a great tribute to the associates of this firm. And I think from now on we'll let them set their own bonuses. Well, we're getting to my reminiscences. And I want you to evaluate them by two standards. First, as loyal members of this firm, you should believe implicitly in everything I say. Second, you should recognize that I am an old man, and most of the things that I remember best never really happened. With those standards, you can easily, being antitrust lawyers, come to a equitable result. And I'm going to tell you how it was, and this may be of interest to the ambitious young men who want to succeed in the law, how it was that I came to be a partner in this worldwide eleemosynary institution known as Arnold and Porter. I was a student at the Harvard Law School, and my roommate and I decided there wasn't much sense in practicing law. It was too hard work. And so we just thought of another career. We both were fond of cigars, and we thought perhaps the profession of aging cigars would be one that would appeal to people of our sophisticated tastes. Now, the profession of aging cigars is not a difficult one. You store cigars of the best Havana types and humidors. You then sit down and take them out one by one and smoke them to see if they're aging properly. And if they're not aging properly, there isn't a goddamn thing you can do about it. Such a profession is obviously superior to the drudgery of practicing law. But there were certain obstacles in our path. One is that if we adopted that profession, we couldn't marry, because no respectable woman will marry a man who intends to spend his life sitting around in the house smoking cigars. And there was a real problem, because it happened that we were both so attracted to women that they fought for our attentions. and we thought we might succumb. And so we decided that we would retire to the top of some snowy peak in the Rocky Mountains, where there were no women. And there was a difficulty there, because if we picked a peak so steep that the women couldn't climb up, we couldn't climb up there either. Well, in any event, we picked Medicine Bow Peak in the Rocky Mountains near Laramie. And we decided to build a castle up there. And the living room of that castle would be 100 feet long and 50 feet wide. And because we never intended to go down from the castle, we needed religious instruction, and we needed something to quench our throat, and we needed music. So the 100 feet foot side of the castle, we designed a bar where there would be 10 bartenders. And at the far short end of that living room, we designed 6 pulpits, which would be occupied by 6 preachers of different denominations. And at the other end of the hall, we designed a great pipe organ that could peal forth religious music. And at the other side were the humidors filled with cigars that we intended to age. Now, as for the women problem, because the mountain was not steep enough to prevent any women from climbing it, we designed the following solution. We had a trusty seneschal, I hope you understand that word, who would stand at the gate, and as each woman climbed the mountain to reach us, the trusty seneschal would put her in a grease slide, protected on each side, and she would go shooting down 4,000 feet to the plain below. And if she did it again, he would do the same thing again, and we hoped eventually she might get discouraged. Well, picture the scene as we envisaged it on a Sunday morning. At 11 o'clock, my roommate and I would wake up. We would press button number 1, and the 6 preachers would start preaching all at once, shouting to drown each other out. And we would press button number 2, and the great organ would peal forth. And we would press button number 3, and all the bartenders would start mixing drinks, and the rule was that all drinks mixed in the room must be drunk. And outside would be this inspiring sight. A long line of women, beautiful women, climbing the 4,000-foot slope. As each reached the top, she would be put in the slide by the trusty seneschal and descend to the plains below. And the organ would be pealing, and the preachers would be preaching, and the bartenders would be mixing drinks, and the women would be going up and sliding down below. Can you imagine a career of aging cigars more attractive than that? And of course, we didn't want to practice law. And hadn't we achieved that dream, I would never be the head, or the tutelary divinity, or a partner of Arnold and Porter. But there was one difficulty. That profession required financing. So we adopted a plan to finance it. Major Lee Higginson, who was an avaricious man, was the great banker Boston. He later fell for Kruger, the Match King. And we decided we would go to him and say, Major Higginson, we will bet you $500,000 that on the 8th day of June, in the time of a full moon, over the Charles River in Cambridge, we can make the moon do a figure 8. Well, of course, being an avaricious man, and he would certainly bet on such a sure thing as that, and we expected him to take us up without even examining our financial qualifications to pay the bet. And it seemed pretty simple. And then the evening of the scientists would scoff at us and say we couldn't do it. And we would scoff back. And the matter would get international publicity. And then on the evening of the 8th of June, or whatever date it was on the full moon, no, not my birthday, whenever the date was of the full moon, there would be this assemblage on the banks of the Charles. Norrie Pearson, my roommate, and I would be in frock coats and silk hats. We would have the Nobel Prize winners and the eminent astronomers on this platform with us. Lee Higginson would be there. There would be a number of bright Swedes, just to add color, because I always believe that bright Swedes add color to everything. The moment would approach. There would be a countdown. 10 seconds, 9 seconds, and so on, until the exact seconds came when the moon would do the figure 8, and then we'd make the moon do it. Unfortunately, we never devised a method of making that moon do the figure 8. Otherwise, that perfect scheme, which we, in our secret correspondence, designated as El Schemo, was defeated by this little technicality, which we later designated as El Rubbo. Well, no one today, I doubt if with the miracles, Major Higginson would have taken the bet. But remember, that was in the year 40 B.C. I mean by B.C. before computers. Well, the thing didn't work. We gave it up. I became a practitioner of law, and that is how I got to be a partner in the firm of Arnold and Porter. And now I end my reminiscences. I say that I am dreaming of a small firm, just like the firm I used to know, where stenographers were cheery and nobody got weary until the goddamn thing began to grow. And I close with benediction, which I have always closed with for the past 20 years. And that is the benediction of the benevolent and protective benevolent and protective order of Elks, which I joined in 1920 because it was the only place you could get a drink in Laramie. And I'm giving away a secret of that order, and I hope you will keep it confidential, but we have adopted this secret ritual of the Order of Elks as our own ritual. And so will you repeat after me as I say this benediction. And now, the mystic hour of 11 approaches, and the great heart of Elkton throbs and beats as we say the toast to our absent brothers.